Hello again everyone, Box Salesman here with the SpinToWin Cyclone build. At the end of this video I will be running this gorge map so you can have an idea of the build in action. This build is really tanky and is also pretty decent damage. It's a great beginner build because it doesn't require any specific gear. If you see, all my gear are rares, there's not a single unique in here. The uniques are also not requirements and not even that great actually. My perfect setup would probably still be all rares. So it's pretty easy to gear. It's honestly really easy to play as well. If you see, I only really have 3 skills here and my Cyclone. So I don't really have to do a lot of different skills either, so which again makes it easy to play. And it's the fact that you're actually moving while doing the damage gives you great mobility. Even though you're a melee, you can still often dodge many abilities. So let me first go over the skill tree and try and explain you a bit the route we take while leveling. We just start here at the start of a Marauder. This is honestly the best start, nothing else compares. Duelist, Templar, it's all crap compared to the Marauder start for this build. So take a Marauder. You could make Templar work, just take one of these routes here, or Duelist and take one of these routes, but honestly Templar is just better. So we start here. We quickly pick up live region. As you can see here, the live region goes up very quickly at the start. Then the melee damage here to give us a nice edge for leveling. Then we immediately go up here, take even more live region. Once we completed all these live region nodes, we can actually run Blood Rage without losing health, which is really key to leveling faster with this build and also key to doing maps much faster. Blood Rage gives life heal, gives damage, gives frenzy charges, which gives even more damage. It's awesome. Then you can go up to Templar for the increased AoE, or you can immediately go to the left here for Resolute Technique. I would recommend going Resolute Technique first, and only then going Templar for the increased AoE, because Cyclone is level 28 to use anyway, so rushing towards the increased AoE won't really do much if you're not using Cyclone yet. So after getting Resolute Technique and the increased AoE, we just go down all the way to Duelist, and ignore these live nodes and these armor nodes for now. We'll be taking those later. Of course, if you're on hardcore, you might consider taking them earlier anyway, but we have this really healthy start at the beginning. There's some more great health here, so we're already picking up a lot of health at the start. Then when you're still leveling, you can skip these nodes because it's axe specific. While you're leveling, you want to not have any specific nodes yet, so if you find a good mace, you use the mace. So while leveling, try to skip all of the axe specific ones. Also, don't really bother with endurance charges yet. You can take all of those later. If you see here, I take a jewel slot here, because it's only 2 skill points for a jewel slot. In this build, if you can take a jewel for only 2 skill points, you will always do it. Jewels are amazing. 2 skill points is definitely worth less than a jewel in this build. Then here we take some more armor life, great combo nodes. Again, life recovery from flasks as well here. That's actually pretty underrated in general. It really helps as well. Then we go down here, pick up some more life here. This is a pretty strong node, 8% and 5%. Good enough. Then we go down here. We pick up this life leech cluster. That's actually a lot of tankiness comes from this, because this makes us leech like crazy. There's a lot of increased life leech in here. There's also just some pure life leech in here, and also allows us to go past the normal cap of life leech. It's normally 20% of maximum life. This makes it 25%. It's a great cluster all around. Then go down here, and these are actually two-handed nodes, so you can take them even if you don't have an axe yet, because they're two-handed. They're not axe specific. And then I like to immediately go up to Duelist, go in here, and Master of the Arena is godlike. I would call this the single strongest point in the build, except for maybe Resolute Technique. This thing offers so much for a point. It's almost the entire reason we go down to Duelist. 1% live region, plus 2 range. An axe actually has a base Cyclone range of 7. So a plus 2 buff on a range that's only 7 is actually amazing. About these ranges, that's actually also the reason why we take axes. Axes and one-handed rapiers are the only Cyclone weapons that have a range of 7. Using any other weapon will make your Cyclone have a smaller area of effect, so axes is the way to go. Cyclone area of effect is not that great. It's pretty tiny, so you want to maximize this. Then of course go towards here. This is another really strong one. Ignore all movement speed penalties. If you're using a chest, you will get a movement speed penalty, something a lot of people might not know. So using this takes it away, and 12% attack speed is really worth it anyway. Some life on the way, another really great life armor evasion node, so these nodes are really all worth it anyway. And to get there, we just take some physical nodes. These nodes in themselves aren't that great, but it's mostly for these that we actually go there. And then once you've taken this entire route, then you can start fleshing out. You start picking up the live nodes. If you're on hardcore, you might want to do this earlier. You start picking up the X-specific nodes. If you're around level 60, 68, you should start looking for an X on PoE trade. So then you just get an X and fill out all the X nodes, the ones you've been skipping because you don't want to be tied to an X yet. And yeah, then you just flesh out the tree. Here's some armor nodes. Armor nodes in themselves aren't that great, but as you see here, you take reduced extra damage from critical strikes. This didn't used to be that great, but just recently there's been a new map modifier introduced with extra crit chance and extra crit damage, which makes Unyielding much more powerful than it used to be. And it was a strong ability in the first place. We also pick up all the endurance charges that we can, because endurance charges are awesome and make our immortal call last almost 6 seconds, which is actually enough to permanently have physical immunity up in bigger packs. In bigger packs we will never take physical damage. The immortal call endurance cry combo is really strong. Again, really great life nodes here. Increased effect of auras. We don't cost that many auras, only 1 hatred, but still it helps and it's great life anyway. Then eventually we go down here as well. We pick up one of the jewel nodes on the way. Again, jewel nodes are really strong. And here's a really great life node. 14% 20 life, that is just insane. And we just fill out this wheel really. On the next levels I will be filling out the entire wheel. As you can see, I have 5% life nodes here. I have 5% life nodes here. I have a 5% life node here. I have enough to last me till level 100, and I'm going to eventually take all of them. That's basically my plan till 100. I'm just going to take all the remaining life nodes, and I will easily get over 7,000 life. With the belly of the beast, I could actually go over 8,000 life. And life is really, really good right now. You need to have a lot of buffer for the big hits. Yeah, that's about it for the tree. Yeah, actually I haven't gone over this cluster yet. It's another leech cluster, but also with a really great physical damage and attack speed node at the end. So combined with these and these, we have some great leech from the tree, which you will see in the map video that I'm going to show. It's actually a no region map, so all the life regeneration will come from leech, and you'll see how efficient it actually is. That's it for the tree. Then let's go over the links and the gear. The gear is really nothing fancy. You just pick a high DPS axe. My axe isn't even that high DPS, honestly. Keep in mind there are weapon range crafts and life leech crafts on the crafting thing. Both can be really useful. Weapon range is great for Cyclone, as I said earlier. Life leech is always great in this build. I went with life leech simply because of no real reason, honestly. Yeah, I would actually like weapon range as well on this thing, but it's always a choice. Do you want to heal more? Do you want to clear faster because you have more range? I'm face rolling the content so hard that I might actually prefer weapon range at this point, but I rolled a perfect leech roll, so I don't really want to take it off. Now for the gloves, again, gloves can craft physical leech on them, but you actually want to look for attack speed on here. It's a great place to get attack speed, which I don't have, but doesn't matter that much. We also want dexterity on at least one item. Here it's on the ring. It's actually on the gloves as well, but that's a bit overkill. I have more dexterity than I need, so you just want dexterity on at least one item. Intellect is actually not required at all for this build. I do have some intellect here, which makes me able to run a level 5 Enfeeble, but if you don't have intellect, then you just keep this Enfeeble leveled a little bit lower. Use a level 1 and level 2 Enfeeble, it's not that big of a difference. You don't have to gear for intelligence. So yeah, basically it's all just items with life and resists, you know, the usual stuff. A chest with armor, life and resists. Rings with life and resists, although you could get attack speed, physical damage on here. Weapon elemental damage is pretty good as well, because we do a lot of elemental damage in the end. On the belt as well, you can get elemental damage on the belt, on the rings. It's possible to get life leech on rings, but they don't really roll high, and they're also very rare rolls. So I prefer to just ignore life reach on the rings and get it on the amulet instead, because amulets can have really high life reach rolls. As you see here, 1.17%. As you saw in my gear, I actually have a ton of life reach. I honestly have a bit too much at this point. It's a bit overkill. So you don't need all this life leech on the gear to work. Blood Rage will give us life leech, the tree will give us life leech, and there's a cap anyway, so as soon as you're hitting like more than 5 monsters, you will hit the cap for sure, and getting much more life leech isn't going to do much. At that point, it's only really useful for boss fights where you're only hitting one thing, and even then, most boss fights these days have ads anyway in them, so life leech can be useful, but you don't really need it on gear. Just the Blood Rage and the tree is enough, and then you can just focus on DPS and tankiness. So the gearing is honestly really easy. Let's go over the links then. We use Enduring Cry to keep up our endurance charges. It gives a tiny bit of life regen as well. Guess it helps, but it's not. The life regen is the important part. This is for endurance charges. Just cast it whenever it's up, and when you're actually going to hit something with it. Then Blood Rage. As you see, we can easily sustain Blood Rage because we have a ton of life regen. It's like 9% or something for this build, so it's really easy to sustain it. And we link this to Blood Magic because we reserve all our mana. So everything we have to cast is actually linked to Blood Magic. And then increased duration as well, although it's not really a requirement. This is just to make Blood Rage last much longer. So even if you have a lot of downtime between killing stuff, Blood Rage still stays up. It's a bit of a personal preference. I like to not have to recast it anytime during a map and just have it always up, but it's not necessary. Then we have Leap Slam, faster attacks. This is a pretty damn standard combo for any build that can use Leap Slam. It's great to move around. So let me show you that moving like this is so much faster than just walking. And it also doesn't require Quicksilver flasks to go really fast. And normal walking is really slow. If you see this, just compare. It's much better to Leap Slam around. Also, Endurance Charge on melee stun. This makes us able to keep up endurance charges to refresh the stacks by just Leap Slamming. So basically I would like Cyclone, and then Leap Slam to the next pack, Cyclone, Leap Slam to the next pack. And every Leap Slam would give me an endurance charge from the Endurance Charge on melee stun. Again, this is not an exact requirement, the Endurance Charge on melee stun, but it's a nice thing to have. And again, Blood Magic linked, no mana. Then for the Cyclone itself, Blood Magic, again because we have no mana. Added fire damage, Fortify. Fortify is really amazing because it's so much defense for one support gem, and it's also a tiny bit of offense, but mostly the defense is amazing from that. Then melee physical damage. Melee physical damage is a no-brainer, it's great for this build. And Cyclone. Another option would be to drop Fortify, drop the endurance charge on melee stun, and just put the Fortify and Leap Slam, and just like Leap Slam on top of things to get your Fortify buff. And just make sure you Leap Slam every 6 seconds to keep your Fortify duration up. Whoops. But I like to just have it on Cyclone because I don't always Leap Slam every 6 seconds, and I want to be sure Fortify is always up. Then as a 6th link, you would take Weapon Elemental damage. My Herald of Ash is currently in here because I don't have a 6th link. And if you do elemental reflect maps, you need to swap out the weapon elemental damage for life gain on hit. I have it in my offset here. I have a life gain on hit that I could swap out. So if I had weapon elemental damage support, my elemental damage would become too much and reflect would become an issue. But life gain on hit instead of weapon elemental damage will completely fix that. If you're not confident about your survivability on Nelly reflect map, you could also, if you're only using a 5 link, then you could also just change the added fire for life gain on hit and elemental reflect. You won't notice it at all like this. If you do it like this, you won't notice at all. And honestly, even without the life gain on hit, I still don't notice LA reflect. But maybe if you're on hardcore and it's a difficult map, you might consider using life gain on hit instead. Then there's, for the auras, there's Hatred. There is Arctic Armor, which isn't really an aura. And there's Herald of Ash. Herald of Ash is great for the mana regen. It's basically a 15% damage multiplier with some increased fire damage on top from the quality. It's just a great skill for 25 mana. Arctic Armor is honestly overpowered as hell. It's a less damage taken, which is great in itself. And it also does chill when people move over the chilled ground, but because you're cycloning, you're actually dropping the chilled ground over the enemies. Because you cyclone through them, you're just dropping it all over them. So even if enemies aren't chasing you, if they're stationary, you're still dropping the chilled ground on top of them because you move through them. It's really, really strong for Cyclone. These chill effects keep everything slowed, the less damage taken is amazing. And then the Hatred is purely offensive. Hatred is a great aura to run on any physical build. It will give you a ton of extra damage in the form of cold damage. Then there is one last link, Enfeeble, attached to a low level cost when damage taken. You do not want to level your Enfeeble higher than level 5, otherwise it will not work with a level 1 cost when damage taken. This just means every time you take a tiny amount of damage, like 528 in this case, you will cast Enfeeble. Really helps to stay alive. You could link this to vulnerability if you want to do more damage, but I found Enfeeble is way better if you want to be tanky and not die. Then there's also Vengeance, life gain on hit. These things don't have to be linked. Like, Vengeance is not cast from cost when damage taken. Just see this as two separate links. One link is Enfeeble and cost when damage taken. The other link is Vengeance, life gain on hit. I currently also have Endurance Charge on melee stun attached to this, so my Vengeance also generates Endurance Charges. But in the full version of the build this won't be possible, because there would be a 6 link here. So this slot wouldn't be free, and I would have to take my Herald of Ash in here. So the Endurance Charge on melee stun is a bit of a placeholder, because I don't need the slot yet. Another great placeholder here is Life Leech, so your Vengeance would actually leech some health back for you on top of just life gaining on hit. And then I believe there's one thing I didn't cover yet, is the cost when damage taken combo here. This one is really high level, because we don't want to have it go off often. And it's Immortal Call and Summon Flame Golem. The Flame Golem can also be a Chaos Golem. Flame Golem is more offensive, Chaos Golem is more defensive, you take your pick. And Immortal Call, the reason why we do not want it to go off too often, only when we take really a lot of damage, is because we lose all our charges when we do cast it. So we do not want it spammed, we want it only when it's necessary. Because charges give life regen as well, they give overall tankiness. One thing I keep on the swap as well is Molten Shell right here, because sometimes when you have an elemental weakness map, your resists will drop a ton, but endurance charges actually give you resists. So if you're constantly at max endurance charges, which is really easy with this build, then you can counter elemental weakness curse without overcapping your resist from gear. You don't have to do this. But then if Immortal Call triggers, you will lose all these charges and suddenly you don't have resists anymore. So that's really dangerous on an elemental weakness map. So because my resists are not overcapped, they're only like 7% above the cap, on an elemental reflect I will take out my Immortal Call. It's dangerous, I do not want to lose my stacks on an elemental weakness map, because on those maps I need to stay capped on my resist even with the curse. Also for some bosses like Volcano, where they use elemental equilibrium, it's also good to be heavily overcapped, so another reason to take out Immortal Call in those cases. But usually I'll just use Immortal Call. Well, that's it for the gear explanation, I guess. Oh wait, one more thing maybe, the jewels. This one jewel is plus range. I really like my range, because again I said the base range of an axe is only 7. So plus 1, plus 2, these are really big deals on such a short range. So I really like to take this one. This is just from Cruel Quest, the one where you have to get the golden hand thing or whatever in Act 2. You can just get it from completing a Cruel Quest. Then for the jewels, prioritize attack speed with axes and life. Those are the two single greatest rolls. Nothing else comes close. Attack speed with axes rolls up to 8% and completely beats the physical rolls. 8% attack speed is much better than 16% physical. And then, of course, maximum life is just amazing in general. As you can see here, this is like the jewel I would want in every slot. Attack speed, life, damage. There's even some life gain on hit in it, which is actually really strong for a Cyclone build. Life gain on hit is not to be underestimated. It seems tiny, this 3 life gain on hit, but it's actually makes a real difference. You hit a lot with Cyclone. So yeah, let's get into a demonstration then. I've been talking for way too long again. Let's just do a gorge. You'll see in the gorge, because there's no regen, my blood rage will actually damage me. This build normally has a ton of regen, so blood rage won't damage it. But because this map is no regen yet, that might be an issue. But again, the build leeches more than enough, so even if I lose all my regen, I will not have any issues. I've done no live regen torture chambers, I've done no live regen double unique orchard maps. It's honestly, the build is just phase roll so hard. So as you can see, I'm phase rolling here over the mobs. Another thing to do in playstyle is never click far away. I'll try to show you. If I click all the way there, then I'm locked in my Cyclone, you see? I can't get out, which is insanely dangerous. Things like corrupted blood, things that you just need to react to. You want to always click very close to your character, which means that you can instantly react when something is needed. So as you see, clicking really close to my character. Yeah, I shouldn't actually loot everything. I'll just come back to loot everything in the end. You guys don't want to see me picking up all the loot. I cast my Enduring Cry now and then. Just to keep up my charges, because Immortal Call will drop my charges. And this ghost is being a bit annoying, but Cyclone generally kills the ghosts really easy. As you can see, leap slamming again to move around. Phase rolling some more monsters. My DPS on the axe is actually not that great. It's like a 400 DPS rare, which is something you should be able to buy for a couple of Chaos Orbs. Anything in my gear is really not a requirement. All you need to do is cap out your resists and get like an axe that's not horrible, and then you can do exactly the same as I'm doing no region 76 maps. Okay, it's pretty easy map, let's be honest, but still. Yeah, I would normally roll this stuff and identify it in case it's detonate dead and everything, but I'll just keep everything quick for now. And as you can see, honestly, you barely notice the fact that this is no region, because the live leech is just taking care of everything, and I said that I would loot later. You see, like, this live leech is just so strong. There's also double unique on this map, I think. This unique on the gorge map is actually really tanky, so if it looks like my build is doing shit DPS because it's not dying fast, that's actually because the boss is just insanely tanky. And I just realized, because I was showing all my jamming and stuff, I forgot to put on 2 of my auras. So I wasn't at full damage and at full tankiness. As you may or may not have noticed, I've actually haven't dropped my blood rage a single time. I have not had to recast it at all. I'm also not really using my Enduring Cry all the time, because I noticed that the map has really easy monster types. There's not a single monster type that's really dangerous to the build right now. So I'm just not caring that much about keeping my endurance charges up. You could be leap slamming from pack to pack to keep them up, as you saw there. I just gained a charge, and their Immortal Call went off. As you see, I leap slam into these monsters, bam, I get a charge. Leap slam to the next pack, another charge. That's another great way to keep them up. Or just simply press Enduring Cry, bam, max charges. If you're in a decently sized pack, then you will instantly get max charges from doing this. Just go on. Oh, also for end game items, if you want some really end game stuff, the axe at series Disfavor is pretty damn strong. It's not the best. Let me loot that anyway, I like uniques. It's not the best axe. A really, really great rare would still beat it. But it's a pretty damn great unique. It's like 600 DPS. It has 2 increased melee range. It has plus 2 levels on support gems. At series Disfavor is definitely a nice thing to aim for, because the rare axes that beat an At series Disfavor would be horribly expensive. On Warbands there's currently 1 axe that beats it, and it's basically mirror service, so yeah. If you don't have a mirror laying around, then At series Disfavor is a great thing to save up for. Again, it's I'm talking about end game axes here though. It's a really, really expensive axe. It's like 30 exalts or something, and I'm actually saving for it right now. I spend about 3 or 4 exalts on my entire gear set right now. Like, everything together is 3 or 4 exalts. But nothing in nothing there is really required, honestly. You could do this same map that I'm running now. You could do this with 20 chaos worth of gear easily, like really easily. The map is not that difficult. I've also done some crazy stuff on this build. Well, crazy. Double unique torture chamber, double unique jungle valley. I actually have those on video as well on the channel. If you go to the jungle valley boss guide, I am fighting a double unique there. If you go to my, there's a video titled double unique torture chamber. There I fight double unique torture chamber. Who would have thought? And I haven't done an Orchid boss map yet, not a boss guide yet, because I want to really practice the fights a ton of times before I make a guide on them. And if I talk about Orchid, I get an Orchid. That's pretty cool. But I have actually done double unique Orchid several times already. So the build is kind of face rolling a lot of content at the moment. I find it really strong. I've also done Malformation. If you know that boss, Malformation is pretty dangerous. It's the Piety fight. And is that 2 exiles on top of each other? That's kinda cool. So yeah, I've done Malformation with the laser beam from Piety, you know, the one you need to dodge. And I didn't dodge it. And no problems there. Just the live leech alone was enough. And there's a double unique. You'll notice these uniques are pretty tanky, so they will take a little while to go down. But the build itself is leeching like crazy, so these things are just not doing any real damage. We just leech through it. So that was the demo. There's actually nothing to leech from now, so I'm going to cancel my Blood Rage by taking out the gem. Because it's a no region map. Normally you wouldn't have to do this, because our region would just keep a Blood Rage easily, and it won't be any issue. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, just ask them on YouTube, ask them on the forum thread, just anywhere, and I'll try to reply to you. I hope you learned something, and bye.